What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, or wherever you are, and whatever time it is, and welcome back to another video with your man, Immersiaholic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 10 of our Parthian campaign for divided Impera overhaul mod for Total War Rome 2. Today we have our 1 hour Parthia-athon. That's what I'm dubbing it anyway, but today we have 1 hour's worth of gameplay and storytelling for you guys for our Parthian campaign. I do hope you guys enjoy it. We've got a lot of battles to get into, so let's jump in and get started. Sit back and relax, ladies and gentlemen. So straight off the bat, we have a city defense. Once again, the city of Hatra is being attacked. This time, it's being attacked by the Armenian rebels of the Artaxiad Kingdom, which is basically just a small little city-state with a big name. They're coming from the city of Tushpa in Armenia. We have a few little city defenses here with some barricades and some traps. We've done this defense a lot of times now, so I'm not going to be covering too many of these city defenses in the same city, but I thought it was worthy of showing you guys this one because they have a pretty large army. It's very substantial. We don't have a very good garrison here. We just have our garrison plus a general along with just a couple units, so this is going to be a really tight battle. And the battle begins by the enemy charging down our right-hand flank here. You can see that Charax are trying to charge in and get some charges against our archers. It's not going to happen though. They get run down by our spikes and traps that we had laid, and our barricade will stop their charge. In the meantime, our general's bodyguard is actually already flanking around the enemy army and charging into the rear of their archers. We need to shut down those archers very, very quickly. If we do that, then it means that our spearmen will actually stand a chance at lasting a little while in melee combat before they get killed here. So our general's bodyguard will be chasing down multiple units very, very quickly. To try and help him out, we actually sent out a few small infantry divisions, or little squadrons I should say almost. They're basically just our very depleted garrison units, so they're not all that useful, but what they will do is chase down these enemy skirmishers, and they'll also do it in conjunction with our general's bodyguard. So basically, within just a few moments of the battle beginning, we already annihilate their skirmishing capabilities, which is fantastic, and it means that our men fighting on the front lines, like I said, will have a chance, and they'll actually survive for a little bit longer than they otherwise would. Here's our general charging into the Armenian cataphracts. A very uneven battle. However, we then sent in some spear infantry, and we also have our own archers targeting the Armenian cataphracts. We will get a little bit of heavy fire, a friendly fire. It's not the end of the world though, and we actually end up routing the cataphract unit pretty quickly without taking too many losses, although our general is starting to get a little bit depleted. Meanwhile though, in the main street, we're actually pushing the enemy back. They're in a full-blown retreat right here. Our archers combined with a pretty thick spearman line was actually more than enough to hold the battle line on its own, so that's actually excellent. On the second street here though, this is where the main battle is continuing because the enemy has still a massive concentration of their own spearmen here, and they even have a cataphract unit that's stuck in a grind out melee in the middle of that formation, and they can't escape. So what we're going to do, send in our infantry to rear charge along with our general's bodyguard, and we'll continue just delivering cycle charge after cycle charge. And after combining the cycle charge with some flaming arrow fire, you can see just barely coming in, it's only a couple of shots left, we actually end up routing the entire Armenian rebel army. And with that, we once again defend the city of Hatra. Our garrison gets the job done. So there's that battle done with. It was very quick, but I thought it was worthy of showing you guys because it was a pretty tight defense. We just had our general there. He did have a few extra units with him, but the garrison was severely depleted, so it was a very dicey battle, and if we lose Hatra right now, it would be devastating to our finances, and it's just not going to work very well for us. Meanwhile, back down at Ctesiphon, General Fishtaspa is in the area, recuperating his losses from a recent Bactrian victory, actually.
Ready for orders.
Although in the southeast here, the Bactrians are still pressing very, very hard against our own troops. They actually have two massive armies coming into Charax. We have our full infantry army close by, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. So I'm hoping General Fischtasper will be able to help out and assist in the south very soon.
Parthia's bidding, my lord.
Hatra itself is also still recuperating. We'll hunt down the last of the Armenian rebels here.
Kill the coward.
The Artaxiads, as they call themselves. They're nobodies. We'll wipe them out here. And one of our client city-states that we liberated, they're not our actual client, but they're a city-state we liberated,
On the move,
they
my
actually
lord.
took the city of Tushpa. So because of that, the Artaxiads are now wiped out utterly. That's fantastic for us. That's one less enemy to deal with. Tushpa is under friendly control, at least for now. So hopefully that means our northern border will start to see a little bit more peaceful things happening rather than constant invasion after invasion. Here we are getting some trade agreements with the Poker Hike faction. This is the faction that we liberated along with another Armenian city-state to the left, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Vapsikos down here in Syria, we liberated them, but they've been very unfriendly towards us. In addition, Egypt is also very unfriendly towards us now, just because we had some trade with some of their enemies. So because of that, we can't get a trade deal with them or the Syrians. So that is really going to hurt us a little bit with our economy. So that's really going to be a bit of a pain. But back down in the south at Charax, we're basically seeing the Bactrian army look like they're going to split into two. So one is going to hit Charax and the other is coming to Ctesiphon. So we're going to focus the defense at Charax, where our infantry are going to anchor down there and hold the best they can. In the meantime, our cavalry army at Ctesiphon is still recuperating over here. However, we will be sending them out into the field of battle very soon to hopefully confront the Bactrians and engage them in the open where our cavalry shines. However, on the left-hand side of Charax, just to the west, you can see we have a rebellion down here. And this little rebellion, even though it's only a tiny little army, it's actually really hurting our finances in the region, which sucks because this is only one of our two regions that we have. We have Mesopotamia and we have Palmyra. And so that's really just hurting our financial situation. But we can't commit our infantry army here led by Arsaces III to go and deal with the rebels because he has to focus on defending the settlement. If we lose the settlement, we lose our food supply to Ctesiphon and we lose all of our trade. And the Bactrian armies actually change their mind and combine their armies together and end up assaulting the city directly. They're not even going to try to siege us out. Arsaces III has a pathetic garrison to work with, although he does have his professional Babylonians, but he's going up against the best that Bactria can provide. So we'll have to see if Arsaces III can handle it. Here we are on the battlefield. We have one defense here down by the coastal road. You can see with the green line there. It's a barricade with some traps. Further inland, we have another set of barricades with just some Babylonian spearmen behind them. And another, and then another, in basically a L-shaped formation. We're expecting the enemy to come in from the north over here. They'll be splitting down in basically two ways. One, they'll be coming in on our left-hand side towards the center of town. And on the right-hand side, they'll be coming down the coastal road. That seems to be what they're usually doing when they attack from this direction. So that's where the majority of our defenses will be focused. In the far rear, you can see the enemy Bactrian reinforcements are coming in. But because they're coming in at the angle they should just come in right down here into the coastal road, which is perfect for us because it means that we can neutralize the power of the numbers that they have. Unfortunately, though, they do have some Scythian horse archers. They've been recruiting nomads from the northern region, and because of that, they will get some very nice skirmisher fire onto us, and they won't charge into our stakes, at least not instantly, although we still have a fairly substantial archer contingent ourselves. And because of that, we actually end up decimating the enemy's general right here. For whatever reason, these Bactrians love charging in with their Greek generals very, very quickly. They're all trying to rip off Alexander the Great's courage and romance and myth, and because of that, they're going to get their general killed almost instantly, which is fantastic for us. We don't even have to get into a melee grind against him. But back on the coastal road, things are starting to look a little bit bleak. We have our men in position. We have some Arab spearmen at the front for now. Our Babylonians are waiting in reserve because they're more professional. And the Arabs are just getting pelted by archer fire, so that's going to be very concerning. Meanwhile, back in the center of town, though, we're actually also dealing some more damage with our archers. The enemy sent their horse archers down here, but their horse archers are much larger and much more lightly armored than our own infantry, and because of that, we'll actually end up annihilating them. Although, you can see in the background there, they do still have infantry nearby, so we've got to be careful of that. You can see they only have a few more units on the left-hand side of the screen here, which is towards more so the center of town. We're expecting them to try and pincer our infantry down here, although they're doing it very slowly. So what we're going to do is start to send our Parthian axemen, along with our elephants, along the left-hand flank. Hopefully, that will be enough to knock out this little group of infantry very quickly. And if we can do that, we can then send our elephants all the way behind this massive blob of infantry. This is thousands of phalangite skirmishers and horse archers all clumped up here. So now we've had to set up 3 lines of defense on the coastal road, with our spearmen, with our archers being the 3rd line of defense. We'll probably have to rotate more infantry over very soon. In the meantime, our elephants get in and do the job that they're meant to do. You will see a fair bit of lag here for the next few clips. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a weird glitch in this battle where even though my FPS was actually excellent, the animations of the units just could not be processed by the game fast enough due to how many men there were. So there will be a little bit of lag for a little while, but the main thing is that our general's bodyguard and our elephants are actually combining their charge to come out here and annihilate these few isolated units towards the market square of town. And our elephants are fantastic at scaring the enemy, so we'll see a lot of waverers, and then we'll get the rout, and then after they rout, we cut them down as they flee the battlefield. So that's perfect over there. Meanwhile, back towards the coastal road though, the enemy massive blob of phalangites is now pushed through our 1st line of defenses. We actually pulled back with our 2nd line, and we've now set up 2 lines here where we're expecting the enemy to keep pushing along the coast. So we have our 3 Babylonian spearmen contingents there, and then down this small side street, we have 2 contingents of heavy spearmen, 1 Babylonian and 1 Arab, to try and hold the street right there. But it's looking a little bit bleak over here. They have still a massive amount of professional infantry. Even though they've lost their general, it still might not be enough. By this time in the battle, we've actually managed to wrap around and start recharging the enemy massive blob with our elephants and cavalry. However, because there's so many infantry here, all they need to do is just send a couple units to the rear to attack us, and we don't get the rear charging penalty on the majority of their troops. So we actually wait, and we wait until the phalangites are up here now, engaging completely against our Babylonian spearmen. We even have our Syrian heavy archers getting involved in the melee because they have excellent armor. And now we're going to try and sneak in our elephants yet again. This time we're hoping for a little bit of a cleaner charge. And we do get it. Our elephants manage to just barely sneak by the enemy infantry while they're busy engaging our front line. The phalangites over here get absolutely pummeled to the ground. Our elephants target a very weak point in the enemy front line. However, you can see on the left, they still have a lot of men left. They have hoplites and they have pikemen. Both are extremely disciplined and well armored, so it's very scary there. At the rear of the enemy formation, though, we've actually managed to drag out a couple units of phalangites here, so our weak infantry are going to be holding them in position while our cavalry and elephants try to get in behind this unit and get some recharges. And you'd think that it would be enough to wipe out this unit, but despite the elephants coming in and doing their thing, this unit is actually going to hold on for a very long time. And by this point in the battle, our elephants were very tired. We had already lost a couple of them, and more of them were starting to drop now. And so now, this is where the battle falls completely out of our favor, where I tell our elephants to retreat so they can recover and rest. However, for some reason, they end up routing from the battlefield. And not only do they rout, but they actually shatter off the battlefield, so they won't be returning whatsoever. This is catastrophic for the defense of Charax. All we have now is our general's bodyguard, which is also very exhausted, so their charges are not very powerful. Our infantry are trying to pin the enemy pikemen down, but they're getting cut down by their pikes, and so this is going to head south very, very quickly. This is going very badly. Those elephants were really our super weapon. We needed them to deal with the enemy's massive blob of infantry. And even though we dealt with that one single unit, Back on the main front line now, our archers are getting pummeled down here. Our cavalry is coming in to recharge and try and help out. You can see the enemy, friendly, elephant bodies are actually getting in the way of our charges. We're having to push them out of the way. The enemy hoplites are pushing through our Babylonians, and now the pikemen are actually turning around and getting ready to face our cavalry. And with that, they actually chase our cavalry off the battlefield. Arsaces III died in the fighting, but his bodyguard is not having any of it, and they all rout from the battlefield, not willing to try and recover the general's body. Very shameful of them to rout so easily. You can see there's a lot of infantry still routing. We routed thousands of the enemy men, but it didn't matter. We just weren't able to kill them, and because of that, ladies and gentlemen, Arsaces III is gone. So is the city of Charax. Here are the stats if you wish to see them. As you can see, we went up against 8,000 Bactrians, all professional and very well trained, against our 3,800 men, with a mixture of a Babylonian professional corps combined with some levy extra Babylonians and some Assyrian infantry, which just didn't do well enough. And we were really counting on our elephants here to try and hold the city, and it just wasn't enough. Parthia mourns for losing a member of the Arsacid dynasty, but now is not the time to be still and mourn. Now is the time to react. General Fishtaspa is now finally done with his recruiting in Ctesiphon, and he is now ready to try and take on the Bactrians. They still have 2 of their armies though, and their armies are still not really all that depleted. They're actually doing very, very well, so this is really scary. They have now a complete line open to Ctesiphon, our capital. If they take Ctesiphon and kill our general there, that's it. It's pretty much game over. So really, we're just holding on by the skin of a lion's teeth, and that's very, very scary. Meanwhile, in Palmyra, the Kidri faction over here, a bunch of Arab nomads that declared war on us a video ago, actually end up getting wiped out. Their own city got taken over. They tried to attack Jura. It didn't work out. Now the governor of Palmyra is marching out with his archers and annihilates them. So that's actually some good news, at least. Back towards Ctesiphon, things are still looking pretty rough. People are very scared and they're not sure what to expect. However, to try and keep people calm, Arsaces III organizes some of his nobles from the other political parties to organize some games and some form of celebration in the hopes that it will boost the people's morale. Overall, it worked okay, but then we get some terrible news from the north. Up by the city of Edessa, which has recently been conquered, a massive Pergamene army is coming towards us. Pergamon is now hunting us down. Even though we don't share a border with them anymore, they're ready to come back and get some revenge against us after we annihilated a few of their armies. They're going to be coming straight across this river right here. There's only the one crossing unless they go south a fair distance. We debated sending our levy army down there, but it just wasn't worth it, so we're going to hold in the city of Edessa. They could even come all the way down here to Palmyra if they really wanted, but that would be through Armenian territory, so it's unlikely. The main thing that we're worried about is them coming up to Edessa. But regardless, that's why the governor of Palmyra has a few units of infantry, and he'll be recruiting more actually in the next few turns, just in case. Because we don't have scouts in the area and we don't know what is coming.
I will listen.
Arsaces III tries to negotiate peace with the Pergamon people. They're just not interested, neither are their allies of Lydia. For whatever reason, these Greeks absolutely hate and despise the Parthians. Even though all we've done is just try to survive, man. We haven't gone out of our way to attack the Greeks. I mean, we wiped out the Seleucids. You'd think these people would be happy and they'd be grateful, but they're just not. So that war will continue pretty much no matter what we do. Speaking of which, the Pergamon army now marches on Edessa. We have a large levy force there, but that's all it is. It's just a bunch of levies, men who pick up spears and shields and bows and arrows. Now they have to hold up against the might of Pergamon at Edessa. Let's do it. Here we are on the battlefield. The city's already burning, still not even fully repaired from us capturing the city recently. It's fallen to rebels a couple times now over the last few years, and the city is definitely still smoldering in ruins. We have a few lines of defenses set up here. A lot of militia units that are basically just men who've, like I said, picked up their spears and shields. They're very basic, poorly trained, low morale. Hopefully the general that we've sent out to lead them is enough to keep them in line and enough to win the battle. We'll have to see. We have 3 major points of defense, so this last one here is where we're expecting some very pivotal fighting. If we can win that flank right there, then we'll be able to send infantry around to the main battle line that we'll be showing in a second, and hopefully they will be able to hit the enemy in the flank, although they're sending up their Anatolian axemen straight up, along with their skirmisher and javelinmen behind. However, we have a large contingent of archers, and they are instantly letting loose their arrows against the enemy. We have our barricades at the front as usual, along with some traps, although not too many. I didn't want to set up too many because I know we're going to have to do some rear charges. And they don't have any cavalry in their army, so we didn't actually set up any cavalry defenses. Here come the Axemen now, the Anatolians charging forward. They have a massive amount of skirmishers though, so you'll see hundreds of javelins being thrown here towards our troops. And we're going to take a lot of casualties because of it, although hopefully they will throw a few javelins in the back of their own men. We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile though, on the far left hand side of town, towards the west, we actually have our cavalry contingent here charging out and recharging into the Anatolian axemen that are trying to charge into our side. We get a nice clean charge, although it was a little bit glitchy there. I'm not sure what was going on. Our FPS was fine, but again, just animations kind of glitched out of it. We do get a nice charge, although there's just so many professional troops there. It's going to take a lot of recharges to take them out. And back at the main battle line, the enemy hoplites are pushing through our men quite literally. So we're already having to commit our second front line of spearmen and militia. We do have a third line along with our archers, so we just need to hold for as long as possible. The longer we hold, the more chance our cavalry and archers have of winning the day for us, which they absolutely have to. Back to the west over here, things are still looking very tricky. We have our large contingent of militia still holding. However, our cavalry are just not making all that much headway. We're trying to get recharges in. We're just cycling over and over and over. But this cavalry unit that we're using, despite it being a shock unit, it's just not powerful enough apparently, and so we're starting to get some kills on the enemy, but we're not routing any large clump of them, so we're going to try and combine a recharge with the fire arrows very soon. In fact, we actually end up doing that at the main battle line. We use some flaming arrows along with our general's bodyguard now charging into the rear, and they will get some devastating charges against the enemy. And with that, we're actually going to see a lot of the enemy routing off the battlefield here. Their professional hoplites are still holding at the front. You can still see them in their disciplined formation, although not all of them are holding very well. On the far west side, once again, our cavalry is still recharging into the Anatolian axemen. We've now sent infantry around to flank them. Here come the fire arrows to terrify the enemy, and here comes another recharge. And even though it's not the best recharge necessarily, it should still be enough to actually get a few of the enemy recharge, and we get some nice kills on it as well. Although we are starting to get disrupted by the amount of troops that are retreating. Back at the main battle line, our general's bodyguard gets a devastating charge on the center of the enemy formation. Again though, their professional hoplites are still holding. They're still willing to stand against our rear charges and flaming arrows, although a good portion of their infantry are now starting to rout, and because they're starting to rout, the rest of the professionals actually follow in suit shortly after. But now we're lining up for yet another charge into the rear of the enemy. We're having our archers target those troops who are vulnerable. We have a general coming in now with the UI turned on. You can see this a little bit more clearly perhaps. We have some wavering going on. We get the recharge in. We have more wavering happening. We need the rats to come in. The fire arrows come in. And then boom, we get hundreds of men routing in a single instant. And we slaughter them before they can escape off the battlefield. The majority of the Pergamon army is now annihilated. Meanwhile, back to the west side though, we continue the same strategy, and while it takes a little bit longer, and the enemy does end up holding out for quite a while longer actually, eventually with the combined might of the fire arrows of Parthia and the rear charges of our cataphracts, they can't stand it, and Pergamon is defeated yet again. And here are the stats, if you do wish to see them, of course. Our general's bodyguard did friggin' insane, getting 1,200 kills. Although admittedly, a lot of those kills were after the battle was over. We spent it running down enemy infantry. But still, the fact that our general's bodyguard can do so well and yet have so many men left over is testament to just how professional our cavalry can be if they're well trained enough. We wipe out pretty much the entire army. They only have a single hoplite unit survive the battle somehow. We killed the enemy general as well, so that's fantastic. And we'll ransom the captives so we get a little bit of money. Back down in the south, though, we have a really interesting development. The city of Charax was actually taken from the Bactrians by the Saba Arabs from the south. They've come up out of nowhere. We don't even share a border with them. But for some reason, they've now joined the war against Bactria. And not only have they joined them, but they've annihilated one of their armies and taken a very key city. Charax is a massive city to have because of the food that it provides and the trade potential it provides, being in the Persian Gulf. It connects to a lot of other empires and kingdoms that have some excellent resources to trade. However, the Arabs have to deal with one more large Bactrian army over here. We send our scouts down to try and verify the situation, and it looks like that's exactly what's happened. One of the Bactrian armies has been annihilated, and the second one is barely surviving. And in fact, we'll actually even send one of our champions to try and assassinate the enemy general. He doesn't assassinate him, but he does wound him. And because of that, now the Saba will hopefully have another opportunity to wipe out yet another Bactrian army. And while it's not ideal that Charax belongs to a neutral or friendly party, we can deal with that later on down the line. The main thing is that Bactria no longer owns it, and in the same turn, the Saba actually wipe out another army of Bactrians. That's 2 Bactrian armies gone in a single turn just about. That's incredible, and that is absolutely a lifesaver for us. You can see General Fishtasper is in the north of the province around Charax. He was ready to come down and basically make a final stand against the Bactrian armies before they hit Ctesiphon, but he didn't need to. And so now that we've had this massive stroke of luck, we'll continue sending our scouts into the east and to the northeast into the Persian heartland as time goes on. But the main thing that we're looking for is to find out the garrisons of the cities in the area. We find Susa and Gore have fairly sizable garrisons, and Susa actually has a bigger one. However, it is also the closest one. And there is a city of Parthia up here, although that's held by a military ally. The Bactrians actually liberated that city, so we don't want to get too close because they're probably going to declare war on us soon anyway. So instead, General Fishtasper with his small cavalry elite strike force is actually going to go in and assault the city of Susa straight away. But we're not going to muck around here. We're not going to try to siege it and draw them out. We're literally going to charge on in and assault the city. Let's do it. Let's take the fight to Bactria, ladies and gentlemen, finally. Here we are on the battlefield. For the next few battles, you'll be seeing the UI turn on a fair bit more, just so I can show you guys a little bit more of what's happening on the broader scale. I've had some requests for you guys to see a little bit more UI turned on, so we'll do that a little bit more. So let me know how you like it, if you like the UI on or off or a mixture, whatever you think. Any feedback is always welcome. But anyway, we have our Parthian army marching slowly at the enemy formation. They actually took the battle outside of the city. They charged out and fought us on the battlefield, so they sallied out, I should say. And so that's perfect for us, because that means that we can surround them very easy and hopefully skirmish them to death. At least that is the plan. We have our formation moving forward fairly slowly. On the left-hand flank, around that circle there, and on the right-hand flank, they have their cavalry. 2 units on the left, 1 unit on the right. That is our instant target. So what we're going to do is move forward with our Parthian archers and form a very quick line. We'll start releasing a few volleys of arrows, but as soon as we loose them and the enemy starts to chase us, we're going to fall back down the center, and on the left and the right hand flank we'll have our Parthian cataphracts, and they will be used in conjunction with our median skirmishers to annihilate the enemy cavalry. At least that is the plan, and that's how I usually approach these battles, where I'm using all cavalry. And so far it works pretty much perfectly. The enemy cavalry absolutely get infuriated that they're getting skirmished to death, and they can't take it whatsoever. And despite the thousands of arrows flying right at their faces, they try to charge out and hunt down our cavalry, and our cav are just way too fast for them. So we're going to make sure that they get several hundred meters away from the enemy front line, away from their archer aid, and now that they're so far away, we're going to finally turn around and start doing those charges with our cataphracts and get our median skirmishers involved as well. And we even have our elephants getting involved because we were able to draw them so far away. I was surprised that we could get them so far away. So that wasn't part of the plan, but it worked out perfectly. And so now we're coming in with our deadly charges. General Fish starts by getting in on the action personally, and our elephants coming up to mop up the rear. But they're not even needed. By the time we've drawn them so far away, our horse archers have already obliterated them. And here, the enemy makes another massive mistake. They let their archers get left out of the main battle line on their own. They were also busy trying to chase down our horse archers. So we're going to annihilate them. However, in the background, you'll see they do have another unit of cavalry coming in. That's our last unit. We've got 2 of the units. Now we have to get the 3rd one. So we're going to have our elephants come up along with a median skirmish unit to try and chase them down. We'll also redirect one of our units that's chasing down archers to focus on the cavalry to try and tie them up. If we can get all of their archers, then this will annihilate their skirmishing potential, and then we can easily surround them and obliterate them. Our elephants get involved in here against the enemy cavalry, and once they do, we do grind them down, although it did take a little bit longer than what I expected. That unit held on for quite a while, but we did wipe them out for very little cost to ourselves. And here our archers are just beginning to love this. They're bombarding the enemy to death. This is where the Parthian horse archers shine their best. The enemy heavy infantry are trying to chase us down. They're getting exhausted while doing so, and it's just not going to go very well for them. So we even actually surround completely some of their more isolated infantry units. Despite them being well armored and having large shields, javelins are just way too powerful for them to avoid, and that's from our Persian cavalry that we have getting involved. They obliterate one fairly mid-tier spear unit, but now they're attacking the Yavanna Guard of the Bactrian army. The Yavanna Guard is one of the elite tiers of hoplites that they get access to. Fantastic, heavily armed, very disciplined unit, and they're getting skirmished to death completely. They're trying to hold their formation so they don't take as many casualties, but it doesn't matter at this point. They're surrounded, they're taking javelins from all directions, and they're also going to start getting rear charged from our median skirmishers, plus a contingent of our elephants. We're sending the elephants forward again, and combining that along with our median skirmishers, which actually have very good melee stats despite them being a skirmisher unit, will annihilate the Yavanna Guard, and we'll end up killing the other hoplite unit nearby as well very easily because of the elephants. This continues for quite a while. They try to chase us, but as soon as they try to form up in a certain direction, that's when we give the attack order. As soon as they're not ready and they're not looking at the spot that they should be, although there isn't really a single spot they should because they're just surrounded, that's when we give that all-out, complete Parthian sandwich order, and we complete it and we annihilate them. However, now they have their main battle line kind of clumped up. They do have some more isolated units, so this is going to take some very fine micromanagement from myself, where I have to be very specific in when I tell my elephants to attack. So right here you're going to see my elephants get very close. The hoplites turn around and take the charge from one of my cataphract units, but we then have another skirmish unit coming from the rear along with our elephants. And because our elephants are the major factor here, they're going to annihilate those hoplites and get them routed very, very quickly. When they have the same thing over here, you can see we have 2 isolated units. One of them actually being very close to the enemy general's bodyguard, so we've got to be careful of that. But now we're going to continue our Parthian triangle sandwich today. That's right, we're going down the triangle way now. It's not just a flat sandwich. We're getting 2 units of cavalry in, along with our elephants. The cavalry is charging downhill, so they'll get a very nice charge, although the hoplites will face them, so it is a little bit redundant. However, the elephants, again, the elephants, they're just beautiful. They come in with a devastating charge, wipe out half the unit in almost a single charge, get them routed, and cut them down before they can get 10 meters away.
Orders!
And after we wipe out that unit, it's now time for the enemy general to go. If we can get this unit right here off the battlefield, the rest of the army will be very close to breaking. Their general is the only thing keeping them together. So we have our elephants coming down with the charge. We have our cavalry getting the order to a charge as well. We actually cut off the order at the very last second so they don't get obliterated by the enemy phalanx position. And now we tell them to attack, combining once again with our beautiful, gorgeous, beastly elephants. The enemy general's bodyguard gets annihilated and they rout off the battlefield within a matter of moments. There wasn't even any footage cut out there. They literally routed that quickly. That's super impressive, and it helps us massively.
Missile-armed riders! Parthian horse archers!
Unfortunately, the rest of the army didn't rout instantly, although they still will rout very, very quickly. So we're having General Fishtaspa get involved in the action very personally, along with his cataphracts. We have some horse archers nearby. I'm trying to not let them get involved in the melee because they have no armor and they're very weak in melee, but I am getting them super close. And then once a unit is almost ready to rout, I'll actually give them an attack order just so they can come and do a little bit of melee damage. But I'm trying to be careful with my lightly armored horse archers. Now we have just 2 units of Bactrians left. We're going to just give all out attack orders on them. There's no need to be so petty with the micromanagement here. They're surrounded. Their general is gone. Their entire army is gone. Frankly, they should have routed already, but they didn't. Now they did. And ladies and gentlemen, our first attack against the Bactrians goes well. And for wiping out over 3,000 men, how many men does it cost us? 10. 3,600 Bactrians died for the cost of 10 Parthian lives. Those 10 will be remembered for all time throughout Parthian history. They will become legends because they contributed to possibly the single best victory we've ever had. And even though it was just a town garrison, this is still very big and very monumental that we're actually attacking Bactrian Hell territory. We're not just defending our own right now. We're actually striking back. We haven't ever done that against Bactria, at least not properly. We've been on the retreat and backpedaling almost the entire time. So we sack the city, take it for what it's worth, and then we liberate it and end up getting a fair bit of money from trade with the newly liberated faction because they love us from freeing them from the Bactrian overlords despite us actually looting the settlement. So that's okay with us. We'll get a lot of money for it, and that will of course contribute to the war effort against Bactria, which is super helpful for us. And of course we also get a buffer between us and Bactria, so that will help out massively. Meanwhile though, back in Ctesiphon, it is now time for Arsaces III to come out of the palace. He's now recovered, he spent a few years doing administrative duties. Now it is time for him to get involved directly in the fighting. Although it's not entirely by choice, because you can see at the top of the screen, we have a very large Kartli army coming our way towards Ctesiphon. So Arsaces III is trying to organize some quick Babylonian troops to be basically ready within the next few months to defend against this massive Kartli army. The Kartli haven't attacked us for quite a while now. We wiped out their armies a while ago, but now it seems like they're coming back for more and they want our capital, so that is a little concerning. But meanwhile, General Fishtaspa has been given orders to hang out around Susa here, wait a couple turns to recover and get his supplies and everything in order. And now it is time for us to continue the offensive against the Bactrians. We have to use this momentum against them. So now we have 3 options. We could go to Raga, we could go to Ecbatana, or we could go to Hecatompylus. I'm sure I nailed that perfectly. But if we could take Rega especially, then we can continue marching back into the Persian heartland, and then maybe even to former Parthia itself. Who knows? But we have to at least try. We haven't had such a golden opportunity like this at all, if ever. So the army will march forward. We'll hopefully hire some more cavalry as we do continue our advance, although our finances are very tight at this time. We're playing with the taxes though a little bit. I usually bump it up for like a turn or two and then lower it back down depending on how the public order is. Ctesiphon is probably going to rebel regardless of what I do, so at this point it's whatever. Palmyra, on the other hand, is fairly stable, although we have an insane amount of agents over there, so that sucks. We get a rebellion at Edessa, but we're going to get it anyway. I'm actually not going to attack it straight away. I'm hoping the people of Thapsacos will come and take it out, since AI factions usually hate rebels being nearby, so we'll see what they do. But otherwise, we'll just try to recover some public order for a few turns. Meanwhile, in the north, though, we have a very interesting development where one of our city-states that we liberated in Armenia is now being invaded by the Getae. The Karana faction is being invaded by the Getae on the western side of the Caucasus Mountains. The Karana have been doing excellent in their war against the Kartlian Armenians. They've actually already taken a couple cities. However, now that the Getae are getting involved, that is super concerning because they must have a massive empire if they're marching so far in. Anyway, in the meantime though, our spies continue their subterfuge and intelligence gathering in the heartland of Persia, and we now see that they actually have a massive army stationed at Hecatopolis. The Bactrians are coming yet again with their massive doom stacks that they have, an insane amount of pikemen, a fair few skirmishers and cavalry in support. However, still, even though we know they're there, we're still going to try and march on Raga. I nearly debated going for Ep.10, but our cavalry army is just not going to be able to handle it unless we get very lucky and draw the enemy army out somehow. Hecatopolis itself is just nowhere near within our grasp right now because it's also a walled settlement. Raga has to be it, so we'll see how that goes. Unfortunately though, as we end the turn, the Bactrians learn about our little strike force that we're sending forward, and they intercept us just barely before we reach Raga, and that's very concerning. We try to retreat and pull back and get out of their way. Unfortunately, it's just not good enough. The Bactrian cavalry is able to slow us down and engage our own cavalry and force at a complete full-scale battle, which is exactly what we didn't want with their full army. However, I did fight the battle manually and we did win. I'm not going to bother showing you guys because, to be honest, it was just a lot of micromanagement and very boring. But basically, we annihilated their cavalry pretty quickly, and then we just chased, we had the enemy infantry chase us around the entire battlefield for like a good 30 plus minutes. It was a very long battle. It's not worth showing you guys, trust me. You're not missing anything. However, one thing that did come from that battle is that we took a lot of casualties. Our cavalry suffered about 400 losses, which is massive considering our army size was 1,600. So that army is going to have to pull back towards Ctesiphon and recover. And so our invasion of Persia is going to have to wait a little bit longer. In the meantime, though, we're still trying to figure out what exactly the Kartli are doing. They've had this massive army outside of Ctesiphon now for a little while. They came very close to the walls, but actually didn't attack. So we're going to have to be very careful and keep an eye on that. However, the Getae are not messing around anymore. Now that they're attacking our ally in the north around the Caucasus, they're now, for some reason, openly declaring war against us. I don't know why we don't have any borders with them whatsoever. I guess they just think we're super weak and they just want to be like the rest of the AI and declare war on us, which is what happens when you're playing on hard difficulty, which we are. You just have random factions declaring war on you from across the map, quite literally here, so it's kind of annoying, but whatever. It's just another faction on the hit list, and our armies will easily beat the Getae. I'm not worried about that at all, although they do have some territory in the north where they'll have some good horse archers. However, here, once again, Hatra is being attacked. The Kartli send their massive army away from Ctesiphon after finding out Arsaces II was forming up his army there. Terrified of Arsaces II, they end up marching on the city of Hatra and assaulting the city garrison there. Unfortunately though, there was just no defending the city. We had a general there as well with a few extra levy units, and despite that, it just was nowhere near enough. We didn't even get close to winning the battle. So yet again, we're going to skip over this battle. We managed to inflict just under 1,000 casualties on the enemy, so it wasn't too terrible, but it just wasn't enough to win the day. However, now that they're in the middle of our territory, we will march our armies in basically a massive Parthian sandwich. General Fishtaspa, now that he's had Eternal Sword to recover his cavalry, will begin his march towards Hatra, and in the meantime, our levy army up here to the northwest at Edessa will come in from that direction as well. So the main goal here is to get the garrison army, the levy army so close to Hatra that they will reinforce when General Fishtaspa attacks the city, and it works out perfectly. We actually get the reinforcement from our levy army. General Fishtaspa still gets to attack the city, and the Kartli army gets dragged into it because it's stationed just outside of it. Basically now we have a chance to wipe out the Kartli invasion of Mesopotamia, and if we do this, hopefully it will be for once and for all. We'll have to wait and see. Here we are on the battlefield. Now this, will warn you now, will be a heavy micromanagement battle. You guys won't be seeing many close-ups at all. But I feel like it's fun to show you guys how I'm trying to micromanage these battles, and I could cut these down and make every single battle cinematic, but I don't think that's what this is all about. This is about the gameplay as well as the story, so hopefully you guys do enjoy seeing how I'm playing as well. But you can see over there I circled the enemy army. It's just a small little garrison defending the town. However, here on the left hand side of the screen, this is our levy army coming in to aid our cavalry led by General Fishtaspa. We have our infantry and our cavalry completely on opposite sides here, so we're going to try and unite them very quickly. However, shortly after this, I noticed that the enemy general's army is actually coming at us from behind. So we send out our cavalry here along with our elephants to deal with the enemy cav that they sent forward. They were trying to rush forward to help out the town garrison that they somehow managed to create in like a single turn. And so because of that, we'll actually get a beautiful charge on this guy. He's just gonna get annihilated. He's trying to walk away. Walking away from Parthian cataphracts and Syrian heavy elephants is just not a good idea, and so they're going to get annihilated. We'll actually end up killing the Kartli general very early on. At least one of the two generals. They should have another leading the town garrison as well. But yeah, that was super helpful, although their infantry are in the background. So on the right hand side of the screen we have the reinforcing massive Kartli army. So we're going to set up a line of defense with our own infantry to try and hold them off for as long as possible. On the left hand side of the screen now, we'll be trying to use our cavalry to deal with the town garrison. And while it seems like it should be pretty easy to do that, they actually had a general's bodyguard that was lasting for quite a while here. And so we're trying to get the rear charges in with our elephants and cataphracts without being able to skirmish the enemy to death for too long. And so you're going to see me also turning off the fire at will for some of my horse archers, just so they don't damage our own elephants, because we've got to be careful of that. But their infantry are trying to chase down our cav, and I do get them a couple times here. I was a little sloppy with that micro. Got to set my game up, especially for high stake battles like this. We've got to take back Hatra and get our economy stable once again in Mesopotamia. We surround the enemy general's bodyguard, and despite getting a beautiful charge on him, he actually ends up surviving, and so we'll have to come in with yet another charge and take him out. Although the rest of the town garrison is being utterly annihilated, and that's perfect for us. That means we've basically dealt with one army, and now we have one massive Kartli army to deal with. They're engaging our infantry right now, and we have a general who's dedicated to trying to hold that front line. Unfortunately, our infantry are just so pathetic. They don't last all long in the battle. So what we're going to have to try and do to stabilize the line is charge in with some of our cavalry in the right-hand flank very quickly. All the meanwhile, we'll have to send in our archers into melee. Our foot archers, that is. Our cavalry archers will start surrounding the enemy on the left-hand flank, along with our elephants, although we'll still keep some cavalry in the rear to try and do some rear charges for when they do break for our main front line, which should be any moment now. We're getting waivers across the entire front line. You can see that flashing there. That's all of our infantry getting annihilated by the elite Kartli swordsmen that they have there. For whatever reason, the Kartli can afford really elite units, and because of that, they're just annihilating our very weak front line that we offered to them. Our cavalry continues surrounding the enemy, and Even though we have some horse archers dealing some decent damage, it's not going to be quick enough, and so we're going to have to be doing a lot of recharges and micromanagement here. On the left hand side of the screen, our horse archers are fighting, but back here in the center, our elephants and General's Bodyguard are trying to get recharges on all of these heavy spearmen units, which is always risky. The spearmen are very good at reacting to recharges and dealing with frontal charges as well, so I'm having to try and micromanage these charges very, very carefully, very minutely. It comes down to basically the last second that I get a good recharge on this swordsman on the left hand side there with our elephants. We're also bringing in cavalry to try and recharge the swordsman and get them out of the game very quickly, and then General Fish Jasper himself is charging in. We were able to rout that single swordsman unit, but now there's another one close by, in addition to another coming in from the right. So the swordsmen are very quick, they're reacting to our moves very quickly. Our horse archers on the far left are doing well, and they've annihilated the enemy skirmishers, but now they have some heavy, currently swordsmen and spearmen still holding. So that's very concerning, but we do get some nice charges yet again. General Fish Jasper is coming in, he's combining his coordination tactics with the elephants. He's getting some of the friendly infantry back from routing and sending them into the fight to try and pin down some of the enemy units. They have just 4 more units left, though it's starting to look very good for us now. We've managed to turn the battle around somehow, despite us losing so many of our infantry early on. Now it is time for the massive all-out recharges to occur. On the left-hand side, we get a massive one in the center. We're just using a single cavalry unit along with an elephant. And on the far right-hand flank, almost at the top of the screen now, we're having all of our infantry that came back from routing engage a single unit there on its own, along with using some flaming arrows. So somehow, we actually turn this around and they currently get wiped out. And here are the stats. You can see we had 3,900 Parthians marching against the 4,500 of the Kartli. They suffered catastrophic losses where their entire army was obliterated. We suffered heavy losses too at 1,200 men, although the majority of them were from the very replaceable levy infantry units that we had available. So at the end of the day, it's a very welcome trade. We wipe out yet another Kartli army, we take back the city of Hatra to stabilize our finances, and then we're going to have another interesting thing happen because we took Hatra back, and that's that we can now once again get trade with some of our Armenian allies in the north. Because we lost Hatra, we actually lost trade with them. And so what I'm going to do is go in and get trade with them all over again. However, because they love us so much, they're going to give us a lot of money yet again. So basically in total, we end up getting around 20,000 or so coins. Or income, whatever you want to call it. And because of that, we'll actually be able to reinvest in ourselves and our own infrastructure of the region and help try and rebuild it. So that's massive. Both of our Armenian allies were very keen for trade. Unfortunately, the Arabs weren't really all that keen. And then, of course, Thapsakos in Syria is still very hateful towards us for no reason, really. They absolutely despise us, but in the meantime, the Armenians love us. So that's super helpful and helps us massively with our financial issues.
The pleasures of my... You honor me with your worthy presence.
In the meantime, though, Egypt is finally friendly towards us. I'm not sure what it is that changed their mind, but they're very, very keen for trade now. They will pay us an absurd amount of money to get trade flowing, and that's excellent for us. They're basically financing our war against Bactria, and perhaps that's why they want to give us so much money. It will help stem the tide of Greeks coming back from the east and invading their own lands if they get through us. So I guess that makes sense in the long run. So we begin reinvesting our money into the regions. Palmyra itself is struggling on food very, very heavily. So we're going to focus on getting a grain supply depot and increasing the urban, basically food providing centers there in the city of Palmyra itself. Ctesiphon, on the other hand, is also upgrading some of its barracks and other buildings to help try and produce more food and income overall. However, the public order issues in Ctesiphon and Mesopotamia in general continue to skyrocket. We will have more rebellions, and even though we lower our taxes back to normal, and we get the friendly armies out of the cities, it's still not going to be enough to stop these enemies. Stop the rebellions from reoccurring. It's been almost a constant theme here. It's getting annoying. However, we do get a couple turns of relative peace around the city of Ctesiphon itself, and because of that, Arsaces II is now leading an all-infantry professional army against the Kartli, who currently control Ecbatana. Remember, Ecbatana was the capital of Media Atropatene. The Atropatenians were the people who assassinated Arsaces I, Arsaces the Great. We'll get back to this in a moment, but this is pretty big news for us that we're able to actually begin marching out against the Bactrians with a massive army. We haven't done this since we sent General Vishtaspa forward, and even then, that was just a small little strike force. So hopefully Arsaces II can pull a beautiful victory out of that, but we'll get back to that shortly. In the meantime, General Vishtaspa is going to Palmyra. He actually hired some mercenary Arabs for our levy army that's hanging around Hatra and Edessa. And things in the region are looking pretty good. We don't have any other enemy armies around except for a Pergamon army in western Syria. So that's not too bad. Our spies around the heartland of Persia aren't finding any more Bactrian armies, so that's actually very good for us. Ctesiphon itself is being pretty protected, and now that it's been a few turns, we've actually managed to get our public order issues under control. And now General Vishtaspa is being sent to the east. He's going to continue his strike force little counteroffensive against the Bactrians in conjunction with Arsaces II, Shah Arsaces II, attacking the city of Ecbatana directly. Although they won't support each other directly, they will still be launching an attack in the same direction. So we need to basically deal with the east before we can worry about trying to deal with the Pergamon or Lydians in the west. So that is the plan for now. We've actually also recruited a new governor in Ctesiphon to try and deal with the public order issues. We did have a second governor there already, so we were at our max limit, but he ended up getting assassinated a while ago. Now we get Arsaces IV rising to an age where he becomes a man and he can lead an army. He's 21 years old. Arsaces IV was the great-grandson of Arsaces I, Arsaces the Great, the first Shah of Parthian. Arsaces IV here, despite him being young, he's showing some military promise and prowess. What kind of specialty is he going to have? We're just going to have to wait and see. Unfortunately, there's no armies for him to lead in the field just yet. But in the meantime, we will try to get his retinue sorted, and we'll begin basically letting him work his way up through the ranks and prove himself to the people of Parthia, because he has a big legacy to lead up to. So, we lose Arsaces III, but now we have Arsaces IV and II still going strong, so that's good for us. What is also good for us is that our spies are not finding many enemy armies. We actually send one back north into Armenia, while we continue sending another one east into Persia. And we're not really encountering any enemy armies that are all that substantial. The Armenians have one small army at Thrapsa, not a big threat whatsoever. Arsaces II is still leading his siege on Ecbatana. It's been a turn now, so he's trying to get some siege equipment ready. And then General Vishtaspa will be going in and directly attacking the city of Raga, although we don't want to get him too close to Ecbatana, otherwise he'll feel compelled to reinforce the army there, and we don't really want that. We don't want to get our cavalry involved in that fight. That's going to be a completely infantry-based army invading the city, and that's going to be really epic. That's going to be an awesome siege. I hope you guys stick around for that, but that would have to wait until our next episode. So let's do a recap before we wrap things up. The yellow territory here is territory that's directly under our control. We have all of Palmyra, and we have most of Mesopotamia except the coastline down on the Persian Gulf. So that is going to be a big issue for us, but things are still going okay. We still have those 5 cities under our direct control. In the north, we have Edessa. South of that, we have the city of Hatra right here. Then we have Ctesiphon down in the southeastern part of Mesopotamia. And then in the far west, we also have all of Palmyra, which is 2 cities. Unfortunately, like I said, Charax is still under control of the Arabs down there in the southeast, but we can deal with them when necessary. Palmyra has 2 cities for us, both of which are fairly profitable and have a decent population for us to draw from still. So I'm circling around each of the cities there to show you guys. We just have the 2 cities in that province. To the northwest, we still border Armenia over there, but Palmyra is still pretty safe. It's one of our safest territories right now. despite the massive amount of enemy agents that are basically causing non-stop issues there. Back up in the north, though, our allies that we liberated are doing fantastic. We have a couple Armenian allies that are doing well. However, the Armenians and the Kartli still hold a massive amount of territory in the east. The Armenians still have 3 cities. The Kartli still have at least 3 cities, maybe more to the north that we don't know about. So that is basically where we're expecting them to try and invade us from. That's going to be very scary. As we work our way down to the southeast, we get into the Bactrian-held territory. And even though we're attacking the city of Ecbatana right now, they still have a massive amount of cities. And Ecbatana isn't even held by the Bactrians anymore. It's held by the Kartlis. So we have no idea what to expect from the Bactrians. We don't know what's happening down here in this massive southeast region. It's still all under the fog of war for us. All we know is that there is still one faction over there that's Persian, and the Indian faction is still alive. However, in the south of Persia, though, we have the city of Gur and Susa that have been liberated. So that's really helpful for us, and that means that the Bactrians have lost those 2 cities at the very least. Now, hopefully, about to lose more with our little counterattack that we're sending up against them. Back in the west, though, in western Syria, Antioch itself and the city above it to the northwest is still held by the Armenians, so that means that they have another couple cities that they can use to recruit armies against us. Although they're pretty weak over there, they'll probably fall fairly soon. What won't fall soon, though, is Pergamon and Lydia. They're over here in this massive circle I'm drawing around here. Their cities are combined in a very convoluted mixture, but because they're so far away, it's going to be hard for us to send out armies, or at least basically back up the expenditure that it would require. But that's basically the entire theater of the Middle East and the Far East at this point. We have no idea what's going on in Italy, no idea in Gaul, the West at all. We have no relations whatsoever with these people, so anyone could be controlling Italy at this time, as far as we're concerned. However, ladies and gentlemen, we have the siege of Ecbatana led by Charax II with his very professional, completely brand new Parthian infantry army. But we're now past the hour mark, so that will have to wait until the next video. So ladies and gentlemen, I really hope you guys enjoyed this special. We had a lot of battles to get through. Hopefully now, though, it means that we're finally making some ground against Bactria. We'll have to wait and see. Please send me your best wishes against Bactria, and also let me know how you would like to see Ecbatana get treated after they were the ones who assassinated Arsakes I. Do we raise the city to the ground, or do we allow mercy and forgiveness to prevail? It's up to you guys. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.